Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Milifortic R086 Chronograph. This watch is available from miliforticwatch.com for $99 US, which is €84 respectively. The watch is available in the following colour options: silver, black, deep blue and light blue respectively. Of the colour options, I think this silver version is the best looking. So firstly, let's look at the hard shell travel case that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in this grey hard shell travel case, which is branded with Milifortic. Excellent quality, very aesthetically pleasing. It's got a zip which secures it, so I'll open it and show you the interior. The interior is fully upholstered with contrasting black velour fabric to a good standard, and in the base there is a foam protective panel, and the watch sits in between a second foam protective panel, and the two foam protective panels do a good job of protecting the watch in shipping. On the underside of the lid we've got an elasticated web pocket, and that houses the items which I'll show you. I want to give due credit to Milifortic here, because this is a low tier piece costing $99 US, which is €84, and they could have taken the less expensive default option of just using a cardboard or plastic watch box at this price point. To see a hard shell travel case of this quality is excellent. With regards to items that come with the piece, this is the plastic warranty card. Now, to remind you and clarify, Milifortic are the sister brand of Baltony, and one thing I like about both Baltony and Milifortic is they actually stamp and fill in their warranty cards. So both Baltony and Milifortic watches are made by the same factory, and they both are covered by the same 2-year international warranty. So we have the Milifortic Watch Company stamp, date of purchase and the reference number for the piece. And I want to give due credit to Milifortic again here, because often low-tier Chinese brands only cover their watches with a 12-month international warranty. To get 2 years of international warranty on an €84 piece is exceptional, and they really do deserve credit for that. One also gets this spring bar tool and 2 rubber caps, and at one end we've got a 2-prong fork which is precision ground, and at the other end we've got a push pin, and this is useful for exchanging the leather strap which is fitted to the head of the piece if you want to fit an alternative. And lastly, one also gets this Milifortic branded microfiber polishing cloth. I always think it's a nice touch to get a branded microfiber polishing cloth irrespective of the price point of a piece. Now, the one thing that's notably absent is an owner's instruction manual with clear, concise diagrams, instructions in English, detailing the operation of the movement used, which is the Seiko Caliber VK63 Mecha Course. As an alternative to our owner's instruction manual in the form of a printed booklet, Milifortic could simply use a card like the plastic warranty card with a QR code that could be scanned with your Android or iPhone to download an owner's instruction manual. So that's something I'd like to see them introduce. But nonetheless, we'll look at the specifications of the piece. So we have a 39mm case diameter. We have a 46.6mm lug-to-lug measurement, a thickness of 12.3mm and a lug width of 20mm. The genuine leather strap tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to the buckle and tang. Solid 316L grade stainless steel buckle and tang, as one would expect, flawless brushed satin finishing to the top side, underside and flanks, and I'm pleased to see they haven't used the production cost cutting measure of a sterile unsigned buckle. It's engraved with high definition engraving with a Milifortic text logo in cursive capital font, and it's very aesthetically pleasing because it matches the Milifortic logo used on the hard shell travel case and also on the dial, so good continuity of design. So, correctly proportioned buckle and tang, no sharp edges, no sharp burrs, and nice heavy gauge to the 316L grade stainless steel. We have a double dome sapphire crystal with clear AR coating on the underside, and the clear anti-reflective coating does an outstanding job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the silver mirror polished handset and the silver mirror polished applied indices. Also, the sunray silver dial is highly reflective, as are the sunray finished black dials at 9 and 3 o'clock, and also the silver sunray finished sub dial at 6. So this really does benefit from the excellent quality AR coating, perfect legibility, perfect clarity. When you view the piece straight on, the crystal looks invisible, and that's excellent. That indicates the quality of the AR coating, and the quality of the sapphire crystal has excellent clarity. Printing on the dial is high definition and crisp. Tachymeter scale runs around the outside of the chapter ring, and this makes a refreshing change because usually chronograph pieces which are powered by the Seiko VK63 tend to have an external bezel which is aluminium or alternatively ceramic, but this has the tachymeter scale around the circumference of the dial in black. So the quality of the printing of tachymeter text is excellent, the Arabic numerals and also the second ticks. Very sharp, very crisp. The font isn't too thick and blurry. They've done a very good job of it. So inside the tachymeter, we have the black chapter ring ticks, and again, high definition printing. Milifortic text and chronograph is also sharp and crisp, but I think they've made an error here. or one could say missed opportunity, because if you look above the 6 o'clock subdial, in contrasting red text in capitals, we have WR100M, which denotes 100 meters. They should delete this because we're not looking at a dive piece. This is a chronograph piece, and therefore the water resistance rating is negligible information. If they want to indicate that, they can simply engrave it into the case back rather than having a sterile case back. But nonetheless, they should have deleted it. I appreciate they want to add interest to the dial and balance the two lines of text at 12, but I think it would have looked better with chronograph in red at 12 beneath Milifortic's logo. Alternatively, delete the WR100M from above the 6 o'clock subdial, and they could have curved chronograph in capitals in red above the subdial. That would have looked more aesthetically pleasing, rather like a Newman Daytona, for example, which is clearly the look they're going for. Another missed opportunity, subjectively, one could say, is the silver subdial. This does look like a bicompact style with the black 9 and 3 subdials, but I think they should have also made the 3 o'clock subdial black as well, to have 3 dials in black, because that would contrast very well with the Sunray silver dial and also complement the black tachymeter scale around the circumference of the chapter ring. But this is subjective. Some collectors might prefer the bicompact style of having 2 black subdials at 9 and 3 and having the silver subdial which contrasts at 6. But I think when you have 3 subdials on a watch, on a chronograph, the 3 subdials should match. They should all be black or should all be silver, but not having 2 different colour subdials, for example 2 black and 1 silver. This just doesn't look as balanced as a black subdial would do, and I think it would look more like, for example, the Panda chronographs such as the Speedmaster and alternative the Daytona, which are very aesthetically pleasing with the 3 black subdials contrasting with a lighter background dial. But nonetheless, that's what they've chosen. So, dial execution is good. The silver mirror polishing to the applied indices is excellent, and the quality of the mirror polishing to the handset is also excellent. So, we've got a pencil minute hand and also a pencil hour hand, and the proportions are good. The hour hand is larger than the minute hand, and one can clearly differentiate between the two, because you can see it's shorter but wider for the hour hand and longer and more slim for the minute hand. Nice arrowhead tip on the tip of the chronograph hand, and it aligns correctly with the 60 on the tachymeter and the 60 on the chapter ring, so we'll test that with a chronograph complication. 2 pushers on the right hand flank with screw down collars. The collars are knurled to match the knurled screw down crown, and 100 meters of hermetic seal is strong specification both for the screw down pushers and the screw down crown. Bearing in mind this is a chronograph piece, as I've detailed, we're not looking at a dive piece, so strictly speaking this could have a push pull crown with 50 meters or simply conventional pushers without the screw down collars and 50 meters on the pushers. 100 with screw down pushers and screw down crown is very strong, and they deserve credit at this price point of €84. However, subjectively, I'm going to be critical of the crown being sterile and unsigned. One has to be realistic and magnanimous about some production cost-cutting measures, because this is a low-tier piece costing €84. But however, other Milifortic pieces do have the MF emblem engraved on the crown at a similar price point. So Milifortic are capable of doing it, and as I've detailed, Baltony is the sister brand. Baltony are also capable of doing it with embossed B emblems on their crowns, which are done to a very high standard. They emboss the B and mirror polish it, and with this it's concentric CNC lathe tool machined, so the best option would be to engrave the MF emblem for Milifortic versus embossing it, and that would fit the aesthetic of the concentric CNC lathe tool machining to the pushers and also the crown. It's a production cost-cutting measure too far, and it's disappointing because they have signed the buckle and tang, which is good, and also it matches the Milifortic, but it's just a shame it's got a sterile case back and sterile crown as to production cost-cutting measures. But we'll test the execution nonetheless. So, screw down crown. Now, it does feel smooth, doesn't feel rough or gritty, but however, I can't say it's silky smooth. It's stiff. Now, to clarify, when I say it's stiff, it does unscrew and screw down freely, so it doesn't feel rough or gritty, but it just has some resistance. There is some friction. The friction is not caused by the two rubber O-ring gaskets. So to clarify, there's one rubber O-ring gasket inside the stainless steel crown, and there's a second rubber O-ring gasket inside the stainless steel crown tube. The 2 hermetic seals provide 100 meters of hermetic seal, so that's good. The friction isn't caused by the friction of the rubber O-rings. It's actually caused by the threads, the internal thread of the stainless steel crown meshing against the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. Very simple to correct, because when they're machining the external thread and the internal threads respectively, they simply need to cut the thread slightly deeper, and that reduces the friction. between the stainless steel and the stainless steel rubbing against each other. So it feels smooth, doesn't feel rough or gritty, but just doesn't feel as silky smooth. For example, on other low-tier chronograph pieces, and for reference, I'll use the Pagani Design PD1644, which is a similar €84 price point. That does have a better screw-down crown and better screw-down collars on the pushers. They are silky smooth throughout. So Milifortic are capable of doing it, and I'd like to see them refine the crown to make it silky smooth, but it's okay. So the negative of this being powered by the Seiko VK63 Mecha Quartz is it does have a date complication. So the date wheel is still present beneath the dial. They could have cited a date window at 4 o'clock, which is often used by the brands such as Pagani Design with the PD1644, which is a Daytona homage that you'll all be familiar with. Subjectively, some collectors will be critical of this because they'll say, well, the VK63 has a date, so why not use the date on the dial? I personally prefer the balance and the clarity, the symmetry of just 3 subdials and deleting the date window. But as I've detailed, the negative is when you pull it out to the first click, that is the date setting position. And when you rotate the crown, you can feel the date clicking over with a quick set complication because they haven't removed the date wheel. So it does have a phantom date setting position. That's something to be mindful of if you dislike phantom date setting positions as I do. Pulling it out to the second click position hacks the movement. So if you look at the subdial at 6, you can see the second hand has now stopped dead. Therefore, it's possible to set the time precisely to the second with a caliber VK63 Mecha Quartz. So we're now in the time setting position. Feels smooth both clockwise and anti-clockwise. Doesn't feel rough or gritty, which is good. I like the smooth feeling of it. It has 0 joules, very minimal friction to the Mecha Quartz caliber. And I like the reliability. It's a reliable, well-proven workhorse Mecha Quartz caliber made in Japan. The VK63 has the same architecture as the VK64, which you'll all be familiar with. The only difference is they have different subdial positions, but they have the same date complications, so the architecture is the same, just the positioning of the dials is different. Feels good. Minimal backplay in the gearing. One doesn't have to take up a lot of slack. When you rotate the knurled crown clockwise and anti-clockwise, there's an almost immediate response to the pencil minute hand. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click and that restarts the movement. If you look at the subdial at 6, you can see the subdial second hand begins to tick around the subdial once again. So let's test screwing the crown back down. Instant thread pickup. There's a perfect interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. So it feels smooth. It's not silky smooth, but I like the feeling of it. It doesn't feel rough or gritty. Now, the quality of the knurling is excellent, and I want to give due credit to Milifortic here because the knurling is grippy and tactile, so therefore it's easy to get good purchase with your index finger and thumb, but it doesn't feel sharp. Often with knurling like this, it feels very rough, it feels very sharp and abrasive, so therefore it's not pleasant to use because the knurling digs into the index finger and the thumb. It feels sharp, feels scratchy. This feels grippy, but it doesn't feel sharp. Also, there's a large chamfer on the edge of the crown and also on the collars to the pushers, and that deletes the sharp edge to the tips of the knurled teeth. So it's done very well. Let's test the chronograph complication and the screw down pushers. So screw down pusher on the top pusher and the lower pusher. Again, doesn't feel rough or gritty, but just feels stiff. They need to cut the threads deeper on the internal thread of the stainless steel collars and the external thread of the collar tubes, the pusher tubes, because that will make it smoother. So it just doesn't feel as silky smooth as on a Pagani Design PD1644, which you'll all be familiar with. They do unscrew okay, but they just feel tight. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because they're going to be reliable and robust. For example, they're not going to leak. That's the point. When you screw them down fully, it's going to reinstate the 100 metres of hermetic seal. So I'm absolutely confident in the water resistance rating. I'd sooner have them slightly too tight than rather too loose, but they just feel slightly too stiff for my liking. They need to refine it and make it lighter. So pressing the top pusher activates the chronograph complication, and you'll see the chronograph hand with the arrowhead tip begins to tick around the tachymeter scale with the characteristic tick of the VK63. Pushing the top pusher has a nice heavy spring-loaded action. Nice positive click. You've got to give it a good hard firm push, and in terms of resistance, it feels exactly the same as the Pagani Design PD1644, which is the Daytona homage. Characteristic smooth, crisp pressing action to it. I like it. Feels reliable, feels robust. So long term, it's not going to fail. I like the heavy spring-loaded action of it. You've got to give it a good hard push, but it clicks with a nice positive click to stop and start the chronograph. Feels very reliable. Pushing the lower pusher resets the chronograph, and you can see it resets bang on the 60 on the tachymeter, bang on the centre of the applied triangle index at 12 o'clock, and bang on the centre of this 60-minute tick on the chapter ring. So I'm going to check it 3 out of 3 times because, as you'll know from my previous reviews, when I'm testing a chronograph, I always like to prove the alignment 3 out of 3 times to confirm that when the chronograph hand resets from various positions on the tachymeter on the dial, that it resets bang on 60, bang on the centre of the dial 3 out of 3 times to check for misalignment, because sometimes other brands, when they press the chronograph second hand onto the Canon pinion, they're slightly misaligned. And the problem is when you reset the chronograph, sometimes it resets slightly to the left or the right of the 60 on the tachymeter and the 60-minute tick on the chapter ring. It's not bang on the centre. Pushing the top pusher has a nice positive click, resets bang on 60, so I'll just check it a third and final time in a different position to confirm it. But this is something I really like about the VK63, its accuracy in terms of the alignment. When you reset it, when the chronograph hand is set correctly, they always reset bang on the centre, so they are very accurate, they're very reliable, very well proven. Build quality, quality control, materials and finishing are all excellent. I like the action of it. Nice heavy spring-loaded action. Lower pusher feels exactly the same. Nice positive click. Resets bang on 60. 3 out of 3 times. Let's test screwing the collars back down. Again, feels stiff. Doesn't feel rough or gritty, but just doesn't feel silky smooth. Threads pick up instantly, so that's good. And they do screw down fully. So the threads are cut well, but they just need to be cut slightly deeper because, again, they have too much friction. They just feel slightly stiff. And I prefer collars on pushers to be smoother, rather like a PD1644. Lower pusher, again, there is some stiffness to it, does feel smooth but not silky smooth, does screw down fully, doesn't feel rough or gritty, so room for refinement, but they do work well. I'd just like to see the screw down crown signed with MF emblem as I've detailed. Let's look at the strap in detail. So, calf leather strap, matte finish to the top side and underside, contrasting white stitching at the spring bar end. It's a thick strap, but it tapers down in thickness and also in width, which is good. 2 keepers, first one is fixed, second keeper slides, and good attention to detail because on the end of the strap we've got contrasting white stitching on the tip which complements the white stitching on the spring bar end. It is a thick strap. Now I think they could have used a thinner leather strap which would have been more soft and supple. It is calf leather, which is good, but however it's very thick. And this is going to require a lot of breaking in to become soft and supple. For example, to put this into perspective, it's not as soft and supple as a Hirsch calf leather strap, and it's certainly not as soft and supple as a Horween shell cordovan strap, which are made from calf leather and top grain leather, respectively, the very best. It is calf leather, but just not very soft and supple. It's significantly thicker at the spring bar end where it needs to be more reinforced, which is good because it's not going to split and crack with daily wear and tear. It does gradually taper down in thickness, but I think they could have made it thinner overall. And of course it's going to be very durable because it's a thick leather strap, but it does feel stiff, so it's not as comfortable as a thinner, more supple strap. That's the point I'm making. Perfectly smooth on the top side. This will fit from a minimum 6-inch wrist size up to a maximum 7.5, so plenty of holes. I like the smooth, grained finish to it. They've made the correct decision by making it matte black versus glossy black as per a dress piece. Underside is perfectly smooth, so therefore it feels very comfortable to wear for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day. Good attention to detail because we have genuine leather, which is embossed. However, they've missed an opportunity, and I'm going to be critical of it. With a thick leather strap like this, it's particularly beneficial to have quick release stainless steel spring bars because when you are trying to exchange this strap, now bear in mind, it doesn't have pierced lugs. Therefore, one cannot depress the spring bars externally with the spring bar tool through the lugs. Therefore, it's particularly beneficial to have quick release stainless steel spring bars because with a thick strap, it's difficult to prise the spring bar internally in between the lugs without slipping off the spring bar and scuffing and scratching the concentric CNC lathe tool machine tips to the lugs, also without damaging the strap by scuffing it. So, standard stainless steel spring bars are okay when you have a very soft and supple strap, or alternatively, for example, a nylon NATO strap or simply a silicone rubber strap which are easy to compress. These thick leather straps are stiff. So they need to update this to quick release stainless steel spring bars. They are capable of doing it. Milifortic do use them and Boltony, the sister brand, do use them on other pieces. So, strap is smooth, it's comfortable, just needs quick release stainless steel spring bars. Again, would be nice if they embossed Milifortic's logo or the MF emblem on the other side because it's sterile, and again that would add to a quality feel. Let's look at the case back in detail. Solid 316L grade stainless steel case back, concentric CNC lathe tool machining, milled slots are deburred and chamfered very well. I like that it's low profile. It's not a deep bubble back case back, so therefore this sits very close to the wrist, and the benefit is it is only 12.3, so it's not too thick and top heavy. I like the way the concentric CNC lathe tool machining refracts the light, which is good, and also the outer portion of it, the circumference, is also concentric CNC lathe tool machined. They've done a very good job of the finishing. It's perfectly smooth, feels comfortable against the wrist, but I would like to see it engraved with Milifortic, alternatively the MF emblem, and around the circumference they can engrave the specification. So as I've detailed, they could delete WR100M from the dial in red because that's negligible, and if they want to engrave the specification, engrave it around the circumference of the case back. For example, Milifortic, reference number, specification of the piece and the water resistance rating. That would look better and it would be better design. But it's a good quality case back. The underside to the head of the piece is concentric CNC lathe tool machine to a good standard. Nice large bevels on the undercuts to the flanks, so no sharp edges, and the tips of the lugs have been beveled, so therefore no sharp corners to the tips. Quality of the finishing to the head of the piece is excellent. Right, so I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, as I've detailed, the strap will fit from a 6 up to a maximum 7.5-inch wrist. I can just do it up on my large 8-inch wrist, and I can just engage the strap in both of the keepers. So as you can see, really it's best suited to 6 to 7.5. It will just fit my 8-inch wrist. I can just engage the end of the strap. So 8 inches really is the absolute maximum, but it does feel tight. For example, I can't fit an index finger beneath a buckle and tang and strap. So really 7.5 is the maximum, but good to see plenty of holes in it. Buckle is correctly proportioned, nice curvature to it, no sharp edges, and I like the luster of the satin finishing. So wrist presence is good. 39 gives it a contemporary look, but also a vintage aesthetic, and I like the use of a double dome sapphire crystal, but not a box top hat crystal. They could have reduced the thickness by 0.5 millimeter if they used a flat sapphire crystal. Double dome sapphire crystal looks aesthetically pleasing without adding too much thickness. Had they used a box top hat crystal, that would have added 2 millimeters of thickness, and therefore this would be 14.3, far too thick. 12.3 is good for a VK63 powered piece. I like the way the lugs curve around the wrist, so it wraps around the wrist very well, doesn't sit on top of the wrist like a thick slab of 316L grade stainless steel. Brush satin finishing to the flanks of the case gives the watch a tool watch aesthetic, and it matches the brush satin finishing to the top of the bezel, which is longitudinal. Nice large mirror polished bevel to the bezel, and of course that catches the light and deletes the sharp tip or the sharp edge of the flat profile bezel. I like that it's flat profile versus being domed, and it looks very good. The flat bezel and also the curvature of the lugs is very aesthetically pleasing. In between the lugs is brush satin finish to the same standard as the top of the lugs and the flanks of the case. Curvature is good, minimal gap beneath the tips of the lugs. So nice wrist presence at 39. This will fit you if you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist. This will also fit you if you have a 7 to 8 inch wrist respectively. And in terms of heft, it lacks heft. That's something I really like. 70 grams is very good. So feels weightless on wrist, doesn't feel top heavy, and it's very well balanced on the thick calf leather strap. 20mm is the correct lug width, and it's got a nice gradual taper down to the buckle and tang. Nice heavy gauge to the buckle and tang, balances the head of the piece well. One thing I like about it above all else is it's only 12.3. Now you'll know from my previous reviews, 13mm and below is the sweet spot to easily slip underneath a shirt cuff if you wear business shirts. So at 12.3 it's 0.7 below the 13 sweet spot. Low profile, this is good. So practical for a daily wear piece, easily slips underneath a shirt cuff, feels lightweight, it's only 70 grams, doesn't feel uncomfortable, doesn't feel top heavy. Good for a 6 to 7, good for a 7 to 8 inch. Another thing I like is it's relatively compact because it's 46.6. Now you'll know from my previous reviews, 48mm is the perfect sweet spot, regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7 or a 7 to 8 inch wrist. At 46.6, it's just marginally below the 48 sweet spot. This will particularly suit or particularly fit collectors with a smaller wrist size of 6 to 7. You will enjoy the 46.6 because you're not going to get overhang on the tips of the curved lugs, and even on a large 8-inch wrist, the 46.6 looks good, feels good. I like the brush satin finishing throughout on the case, gives the piece a real tool watch aesthetic. Silver sunray dial works very well. Had they used black hands on the dial, I think it would have contrasted better because the silver mirror polished handset It is very shiny, and the sunray dial is also very shiny with the sunray pattern to the black dials. They could have also used matte black dials to match the matte black tachymeter scale, and also, of course, as I've detailed, the 6 o'clock subdial would look more legible. Rather than being silver with concentric circles, it would have looked better if it were black. So matte black dials would have looked better, and I think they should have used black hands because that would have contrasted better. But this is subjective. Some collectors might prefer the silver hands. What I like about it is the rehaut isn't too deep. Often with VK63 powered pieces, they make the rehaut too deep, and therefore the dial sits too far away from the sapphire crystal, the underside of it. This doesn't have a very deep rehaut like a Seiko NH35A that you'll all be familiar with. That's good. So it feels balanced, doesn't feel top heavy, comfort level is good, feel good factor is good, smooth case back is low profile, so it sits snug to the wrist at 12.3 thick and 70 grams is beneficial. So they've got that correct. Proportions of it are very good for all wrist sizes. Right, so let's do a Lume test. And we'll see how the Lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. This uses C3 Superluminova on the applied indices and also the handset. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it has not disappointed. Pleasant surprise, because we've clearly got 5 to 6 layers on the applied indices, 5 to 6 layers on the pencil handset. Now, as you can see, they have deleted the indices at 9 and 3, but that's acceptable because this is a 3 subdial piece, and also we have the deleted index at the 6 o'clock, which is okay. Symmetry is good, legibility is good. What I like about it is the colour tone match. In daylight, it looks white, it doesn't look more cream on the indices or the handset. Often low-tier Chinese brands have a problem with matching the Lume on the dial and the hands. For example, on the hands they'll look more cream, and on the indices they'll look more white, and there's a mismatch when they use C3. This is good because in daylight, the C3 looks white on both the indices and the handset, but as you can see in the dark, there's a perfect colour tone match. Same green on the dial, same green on the handset, and we're clearly looking at plenty of potency of the exciter. This is C3 with 5 to 6 layers. Excellent. I'm pleased to see they didn't use the production cost cutting measure, for example, of 3 to 4 layers on the hands and 2 to 3 layers on the dial. This is good. Stellar performance at this €84 price point. And application is even, as you can see. Very good. And it's acceptable to delete the indices at 9, 6 and 3 because of the subdials. They would fail the subdials. So they've done a good job of it. And I think it's a nice even coating. That's the point. On the handset and also the indices, the Lume is evenly applied. Excellent. Really nice to see this at €84. They deserve credit. And far better, this is a level above the Pagani Design PD1644 Daytona homage, which you'll all be familiar with, which has dreadful, abhorrent, weak Luminova. They don't even use Superluminova. So that's something I like about Baltony and the sister brand Milifortic. Right, so let's discuss the movement use because it's one of my favourite aspects of the piece. So you'll all be familiar with the Seiko VK63 Mecha Quartz, which is made in Japan. It's a reliable, well-proven workhorse Mecha Quartz movement, has 0 joules, has a quick set date complication, which is negative, subjectively as I've detailed. The negative is the crown therefore has a phantom date setting position. They could have used the date complication at 4. I think it looks better without it, but the negative is we do have that phantom date setting position, something to be mindful of. Has hacking, which works well, as I've demonstrated. Setting the time works well. And 3-year battery life is good. Now, I want to clarify something. The 3-year battery life is based upon you using the chronograph complication for 60 minutes per day. However, in reality, you're not going to be using the chronograph complication for anything like 60 minutes per day. So therefore, although they state the battery life as 3 years, in reality, if you don't use it for 60 minutes per day, it's nothing unusual for the battery to last longer than 3 years. So potentially you could purchase this piece, wear it daily, and the battery could last for 4 or even 5 years unless you use the chronograph for 60 minutes. But if you do use it for 60 minutes per day, it will still give 3 years, which is strong battery life for a Mecha Quartz. Stated accuracy is my favourite aspect above all else. Plus or minus 20 seconds per month accuracy, incredible accuracy. Just think about that for a moment. That's not plus or minus 20 seconds per day or per week. Plus or minus 20 seconds per month is better than plus or minus 1 second per day. Stellar accuracy. So therefore it's the correct choice of Mecha Quartz caliber, the VK63, at this price point, €84. There is no other credible alternative. I like the reliability of it. It's proven beyond question. And also like the accuracy, which is stellar at plus or minus 20 per month. So excellent movements. accuracy is good, and also I like the alignment, as I've proven it 3 out of 3 times. The chronograph hand resets bang on 60 on the tachymeter 3 out of 3 times. So it is excellent. Alignment is good, reliability is good. Chronograph has nice heavy resistance, so it's robust, and of course the accuracy plus or minus 20. No negatives to it whatsoever, other than the phantom date setting position, which one can live with. I appreciate for the majority of collectors that's not going to be detrimental, they can live with it. So last I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch will meet 2 criteria. Should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So low tier piece, price point is $99, which is €84. I'm going to declare it good quality, and I'm going to declare the value as okay. So why do I say it's good quality and okay value? Why don't I say good quality and good value, or excellent quality and excellent value? This needs a V2. I'd like to see some refinement. So specifically, the areas I want to see improved. The screw down collars on the pushers aren't silky smooth, they have some stiffness. The screw down crown has some stiffness, it's not silky smooth. I'd like to see the MF emblem engraved into the crown, and that would give it a higher end feel. And I appreciate it is only €84, so one has to be magnanimous, but screw down collars if they were silky smooth, screw down crown if it was silky smooth. If the crown was signed versus being sterile and unsigned, then I would upgrade it to excellent quality and excellent value. I'd declare it a champagne watch for lemonade money. But as it stands in its current formation, I can only say it's good quality and okay value. They need a V2 version and update it, but it is a good daily wear piece, it's a good chronograph, and at €84 I think the value is okay. So I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Milifortic R086 Chronograph. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.